All right, everybody, welcome to the team huddle. So we are about to join an interview in progress. So if you watched this live, I went through recognition and everything, and I started recording right after Rachel introduces Seth. So let me introduce you guys to Rachel Hastings and Seth Lucas. Seth is probably got the highest closing ratio of any agent in the whole agency. So does Rachel. They're animals. They close pretty much everybody they sit with. He's got one of the best in-homes I've ever seen. I don't know a better underwriter in the home. If Seth submits a policy, it does get issued. He's a beast at that. And his persistency is through the roof. Like, he never gets cancellations. And he's been at this for a long time. He's a wealth of knowledge. I know you guys are going to learn a lot from what he has to say. So with that being said, we're now going to join the team huddle in progress. Probably missed the first 35 or 40 seconds of it. So give a warm round of applause to Rachel and Seth.
They kind of laid out the foundation for, how I do things the way I do. Because when you spend 5 years talking to veterans, officers, generals, colonels, majors, you learn straight talk, and you guys will hear a lot of that in some of the examples I give you on the in-home. But that kind of got my start in the insurance. And then when I was there, a buddy of mine got in to our practice company. And I couldn't refuse the difference in income and also to work for myself. So it was kind of cool. 5 years ago in almost 5 years ago, March of 2017, we made the jump into this, and I couldn't be happier. I work with my wife and I work for myself. So it doesn't get any better than that in this type of industry. So that's kind of my journey. And then obviously building a team and creating an in-home, it has evolved over time. And so that's basically the short story.
That's awesome. And how has Family First helped you really get to where you're at right now?
Honestly, it's just, like I said, you hear a lot of people mention practice companies, right? And I was one of those guys that just dove in blindly to the last company I was at. And, I'm grateful for the time that I had there because I was able to learn a lot about the business. But when Family First came into my purview, it was obviously an eye opener. But then I saw a platform out there that fit more in line with what I wanted and what, we wanted as a business. And then obviously when we basically, looked at the comp, did the numbers, and it was, a six-figure pay increase just for making the decision. If I didn't do a single thing more, if I didn't sell one more thing or do anything differently, it was a six-figure pay increase day one. And that was obviously a no-brainer. So I had to make that decision. And, looking back on it, we're a year in, 1 year to the day we hit senior sales manager, which is only one step up on the levels of leadership, which I feel like I got still so much more to go, but we're excited for the journey. And it's funny talking to everybody above me, they say that's just the beginning. And it's like, we grinded away to get to where we're at, but it is just the beginning, and I can feel the momentum pushing us forward. So it's really exciting.
It's really exciting. It's super cool. So I'm excited for you guys and what you guys are all going to bring to the table for sure. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about why, or I don't know what you think would make the most sense right now, but I really want to kind of figure out from you what you're doing to have your issue rate so high.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that you can't pinpoint any one thing. So whenever I explain it to people, I just kind of tell them everything that I do. And I hope that they can just take a few little tidbits or pointers. One thing I always do tell people is to make sure that before you incorporate any new business practice that you hear on a conference call or a YouTube or a Facebook meeting or whatever, just always kind of make sure it fits with your voice, make sure it works with your in-home presentation that you've already learned, talk to a mentor or an upline or something like that. Because if you were to take a mixture of, my in-home and Brandon Kitchen's in-home, it would be a disaster. You know what I mean? Because there's two totally different styles and they both work. And I've learned that over the years that no matter what, at the end of the day, if we're doing the activity, the numbers are going to be there, right? Minimally at 30, 40, 50% closing rate. But the things that I do and the things that certain people do, they've learned through trying it. And it's benefited them. And if as long as it works for them, it's like a superstitious thing. We don't want to change it. So if you have stuff that is working for you and you want to incorporate something, just make sure you reach out to somebody and talk through it. Make sure it works with your style of in-home process before you incorporate that. So that's the biggest first thing. And then, we can obviously get into it. What was the other thing you were asking?
Like, what would you say is what, like,
the overall
kind of answered it. Like,
yeah.
What makes your in-home so good, or what makes your issue rate that good? Like, what are you doing?
So ultimately, at the end of the day, it all comes down to mindset. There's a lot of different mindset things that I have, but the number one overwhelming, undeniable mindset thing that I have that works for me when meeting with clients is I create this image in my mind that it's not the two of them versus me, it's the three of us versus the carriers. So if I truly can believe that, and I look at them as a client, not a customer, it will come across in tone, it'll come across in emotion, it'll come across in sincerity. It comes across in a lot of different areas. And I just focus on that as the number one thing. Creating an environment where they feel like they have a partner in this business. They have a partner to help them navigate the 40 different insurance companies and the 40 different products at each one of them, and differences between budgets and different things like that. And I'll role play some of that. That's one big thing. The other big thing is the mindset behind activity. And the best way to explain the mindset behind activity is I never feel desperate. I never feel desperate for that client because we do the activity on the phone to set up our week, to give me the pressure-free ability to say what I need to say and get it off my chest for that client and have those bold conversations. I never have commission breath because I'm not expecting to make my 2 sales on my 3 appointments, right? I'm expecting to make my 5 or 6 sales on my 15 appointments. And that creates a whole mindset that gives you the freedom to actually sound busy, actually sound like a professional, and come from a position of credibility. So those are the 2 biggest mindset things I can tell any new agent. Look at your clients like you care about them and you're working for them and with them. And then also make sure you have enough activity on the schedule and on the boards, so that way you don't have that desperation sound in your voice and that commission breath that comes across. No matter what you do, if you only have 2 appointments on the board, no matter what you do mentally, you're still going to have a sound. Regardless of what you think, we always can manifest our own fears. And we know when we have 2 appointments, we should be fearful. And it's crazy how it comes across, and you can make it happen.
For sure. Would you say that your appointments, you go slow by certain parts of it? Because I think the biggest thing, and the reason why I find your persistency and your issue rate so good is because in insurance in general, you're always going to have some that's going to fall off the books. It's guaranteed. Yours is insanely good, but like most people are not going to have that. So the thing is like when you're working so hard and then some stuff is falling off, if we can even get a little bit better to keep more stuff on the books, everyone should try to get there. You know what I mean? Like everyone. So the fact that I'm talking to you and you have 95%, like what is one thing, like I get it's mindset and it's the in-home, but what's one thing that you think you do different in the in-home than other people might do to like maybe you keep 2 more policies on the books?
I'll definitely get to that. One of the things I do is at the end, and essentially I lock it down. Ultimately, what you're talking about makes so much sense. And if you guys are numbers people out there and you look at just let's just say, a $15,000 a year producer, right? Or a $15,000 a month issue paid producer. If you have majority of your business still on the books 12, 13 months later, and it's still there and you're getting your back end pay, that's essentially a $50,000 back end pay every year. So if I'm spending, so let's just say it's $4,000 a month I have coming in every month on my back end pay, and I spend $1,000 a week on leads. Do I pay for leads? No, my back end pay pays for it. So I never have that struggle from that. So that clicked in my head, 4 years ago. Like, if I can make sure that the stuff is still there. But if there's one thing I do in the actual presentation, I lock it down by clarifying, everything that we've done, and I've recapped everything that we did. I make sure that they have all my contact information saved in their phone, their beneficiary's phone, their contingent beneficiary's phone, and any of their friends or family. Because I always say, hey, if you know anybody that wants me to meet with them, give them my number and reach out. But the other thing I do, like if it's a mortgage protection appointment or even a final expense, either way, I say, it's kind of cheeky what I say, but I'll say at the end, I'll kind of have a laugh at them. I'm like, obviously any more letters that you get in the mail for mortgage protection, you can just throw those away. Any more phone calls that you get for mortgage protection, you can let them know that you already have the best agent in the business working for you, right? And he's your agent. But secondly, I'll say, you can call me day or night. Anytime. This is my personal cell phone. The only time I won't answer is when I'm with a client. But, especially when you're sitting down at Thanksgiving dinner and you have your cousin Johnny, who's a mechanic, telling you everything about his life insurance policy and how yours is wrong, call me on that moment and I'll put him in his place for you. And I'll laugh about it. And they're just like, yeah, I can call this guy at any time, regardless of what question, because they know that they have a sounding board in the insurance world that they can bounce ideas off of. And I set it up in the in-home throughout the whole time. And, obviously we can go into that whenever, but that's the one thing I do at the end to make sure that I can secure business and lock it down. And they know that they have somebody that's working on their behalf. And like I told you earlier, I take that theme throughout every step. We take that theme in booking the appointments. We take that theme in the beginning of the in-home, throughout the application of the in-home, and the closing of the in-home. So it's really kind of cool.
I love that. So by the time you're done with them, they're like, okay, I'm just going to make sure to tell them Seth already sat with me. I'm throwing out all these papers. There's no confusion.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I'll even say, sometimes it takes us a month or two to get you out of the system. So if you've sent any more of these letters back in, you might get more phone calls, but just let them know that you're already working with the best person. You got the best policy, and there's no need to do a review. And I can say that confidently because I know that every client that I put in, there's really nothing better that they can get.
Awesome. That's cool. So can you walk us through your in-home?
Yeah. So this is like the exciting part, right? So again, make sure you check with anybody, with your uplines before you incorporate these things. But I front load my in-home. And the reason that I front load my in-home is because I want to get all the BS off the table right from the beginning, right? I want to get every objection closed from the start. And I also want to feel them out. So that way, if I feel like they're wasting my time, I can get out of here and get to my next one if it's across town or wherever, right? And it's kind of, I did it by necessity, living in Maricopa County, right? We have, it could, at any given point in time, it could be 4 hours from one end of the county to the other end of the county. So you have to, maximize your time. So I started front loading it, and I'll kind of role play the front with you. And then I'll kind of talk a little bit about the psychology of why I do what I do. And obviously we build rapport in the beginning. I don't think I need to do any role playing of rapport building because it's pretty self-explanatory. But once I build rapport and I get done and it's time to get down to business, I'll simply say to the client, all right, so Rachel, what do you know about mortgage protection or final expense? What do you know about this? Or have you met with anybody so far?
I don't know much. That's why I wanted to sit down with you.
Absolutely. So we normally get a typical response like that, and I'll simply follow it up with, yeah, exactly. Mortgage protection can be really confusing, and I just want to kind of fully explain to you what mortgage protection is. Essentially, when you hear the words mortgage protection, you should be thinking in your mind life insurance, right? Life insurance is what it is, and protecting the mortgage is what the money of the life insurance policy is designed to do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Now, with that being said, the company that I work for, Family First Life, we're not a life insurance company. We're actually a broker, and we're one of the largest brokers in the country. And we don't sell any life insurance. What that means is, with all the 40 different insurance companies that we work with, that gives me the ability, based off of your age, your health, your finances, your budget, to help you guys customize and design the best life insurance plan to protect your mortgage in the event something happens to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, perfect. Now, Rachel, when you hear the words life insurance, in order to see any money from that, what do you typically think of has to happen to you in order for anybody to see money from that?
I have to die.
Absolutely. So technically it should be called death insurance, but life insurance sounds a lot better, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So at the end of the day, when you hear the words life insurance, that's typically what it means, is it covers death. But now when you talk about these little bit more modern, more robust life insurance policies that are designed to protect your mortgage, let's say something happened to you where you didn't die. Say something happened like cancer, heart attack, stroke, kidney disease, a chronic illness, a critical illness, a terminal illness, permanent disability, something happened so bad in your life, it was like you died, but you didn't die. Well, a typical life insurance policy wouldn't pay out in those situations, right?
Right.
Well, what's cool with these more modern policies is these policies will actually pay a lump sum of the death benefit out in the event that something happens. It's what's known as an accelerated death benefit or a living death benefit. So that's a really cool caveat to these policies. Does that make sense, Rach?
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that they had that.
Perfect. Exactly. Well, so I'm going to stop the role play there, and I'm going to explain what I do. So that's just the beginning part. We built rapport. We kind of explained mortgage protection, life insurance. And if you're doing final expense or instant internet leads, you can tailor that and put in those words, in life insurance or final expense. But I present some of the benefits, and I front load it a little bit, especially for a young person that can usually qualify for living benefits. I'll talk about that. And from that point on, I got you saying, does that make sense? I got you shaking your head and nodding like right away. And if it doesn't make sense, or if they have questions, address them there before going forward, right? Get the objections out on the table, because what I'm doing right here in the beginning is I'm creating a client and I'm creating a relationship before I even verify their health information. Like we're not even gotten to that point yet. I'm creating somebody who trusts me and is willing to go back and forth with me. We haven't talked about a single product, a single health condition, or a single price yet. Okay. So I'm going to go back to role play, and okay, so that makes sense about the living benefits, right, Rach?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what else is really cool about these insurance companies is we no longer have to do the old style, fully underwritten thing. That's where they send the nurse out, to draw blood, do a physical, get a urine analysis, make you hop on the scale. And if you've ever heard of that, the whole point of those things is really designed to find every little thing that it can find wrong with you, so it can rate you higher and higher for each and every one. Or ultimately, if it finds something that it doesn't like that maybe you didn't even know you had, it could decline you altogether. Well, in lieu of that, what we do now is what's called simplified underwriting, or simplified issue, or express issue, however you want to call it. And the whole purpose of that is now they don't have to do that blood work and physical. Now what they look at is they look at two things. They look at your MIB report, which is your Medical Information Bureau report. Essentially, that's your health history. And then it also looks at your pharmaceutical record, which is your prescription history. So what I really want you to do is kind of think of me as like your lawyer, and the carrier that we go to for the coverage, they're the judge. Anything you can make me aware of on the medical side of things, is not only going to point me in the right direction of which company that we need to go to, that's not only going to give us the best cost and coverage, but it also points me in the right company that we need to go to that's going to give us the best chance of getting approved for that coverage. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end that role play right there, and I'm going to break it down for what I did. First thing is I talk about the difference between simplified and fully underwritten, right? And the way I always present things, just like I did earlier on the death versus living benefit, I always present the negative, and then immediately I'll follow it up with a positive. So now we're 5-7 minutes into the appointment, and I've already presented them 2 negatives and followed it up with a positive, where I was the guy that had the answers to the question, right? And so fully underwritten versus simplified. Then I take it from that point, and then I start into the lawyer statement. The whole point of this lawyer statement is because we're talking about persistency and issue rate, and why am I so good with it, right? Well, I want them to open up about everything medical that they possibly have, so I'm not blindsided in the application or blindsided in the back end when this policy gets declined. So I get them to open up. And I also remember how we talked about the 3 of us versus the carrier, right? With the mindset of it's not the 2 of them versus me, it's the 3 of us versus the carriers. Well, the whole point of that is in that lawyer statement, what is that exactly telling them? I'm your lawyer. It's you want to divulge everything to me, and then I'll make sure it looks good to the insurance companies. And then also, it gives credibility talking about MIV and pharmaceutical, right? You could be a brand new agent and say those things, and somebody sitting across the table from you is like, oh, they know their stuff, right? And it's like, and then at the end of that statement, I said, hey, we're going to be doing an application, right? I said, it's going to point me in the right direction of which company we need to go to. So do they need to shop around if I know exactly where we're going based on everything that we talked about?
No.
No, they don't, because I'm going to shop it for them and I know exactly where to go. So the whole point of that front load of that in-home presentation is to face any objections, get them nodding their head. And now I have a client and I'm getting, before I've even verified health information. Does that kind of answer some of your questions, Rach?
Yeah. Awesome.
The other things I'll do on the in-home is, like, if you're sitting across from them, you got to make sure that you have control. So if the wife's up in the kitchen, doing dishes, and you're talking to the husband, and the wife's not wanting to sit down, doesn't want to take part of it, you don't move forward with any of that stuff until they do, right? Because you want to get them on your side. I've always had, sometimes I'll have the wife and the wife is totally engaged and the husband's just sitting there like this. And I'll be like, hey, Bob, did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed today or what? And he'll be like, what? I'm like, I don't know. You just seem kind of like upset over there. I know this is tough to talk about death and everything like that, but I do it for a living. So you can do it for the next 20 minutes. Right. And he'll just kind of laugh and we just kind of go from there. So have that control. The other thing is one-liners are great because they always catch attention of the people. So one of the one-liners in the beginning when I'm talking about the mortgage protection or final expense or whatever it may be that I'm there for, one of the things I'll say, if they don't fully understand what it means, what Family First Life means and what a broker means, is I'll say something along these lines. Okay, so if this doesn't make sense to you, Rach, let me explain it to you this way. When you're looking at mortgage protection, and I'm here as a broker to help you find a solution, the best way or the best metaphor I've been able to come up with is it's kind of like walking into the grocery store of life insurance to buy a mortgage protection policy. I'm not the grocery store and I'm not the product on the shelf. Just think of me as kind of like the guy pushing your cart, helping you make sure you grab the right thing off the shelf. And that's one of the cool metaphors to help, people who don't fully understand what a broker is. And everything is channeled around that overall mindset. It's the 3 of us working against the insurance company. So that's kind of the basic of the beginning. And then I think I have a client, for life, even at that point. The next thing, and this would be at the verify health information. And this is another cool technique. If you're brand new in this industry, you're not going to know all the different underwriting guides. but there's resources all over the place. There's resources that have cheat sheets. The biggest resource that was good for me was the insurance company, because they have sales desk at each of the insurance companies that you can call during business hours and ask every question under the sun. No matter how stupid you may think it is, they're going to help you figure it out. You can also talk to the underwriters and go through your client's risk assessment, their ailments, their health, anything like that, and make sure that you're going down the right path. So that's one of those things that you're going to pick up on and you're going to learn over time of just doing this. But the more you can be a student of that, the better off you are. The one thing I can tell you is don't ever have that paralysis of analysis where you don't get started of doing this because you're studying products and services before you get a chance. Because ultimately you could study everything that there is to know about a certain type of product, and you may never sell it for 6 months. You know what I mean? So it's like that's a huge key factor. So I kind of rambled on there a little bit, but that's the beginning part of my in-home presentation.
Well, and I love how you broke it down, and I like how the whole beginning is, because to be honest, like, it was all building just trust and credibility for you. So by the time you're ready to ask me questions about myself, my health, anything else that you're going to do down the road, I'm going to be way more inclined now to give you all that information because I trust you at this point.
Absolutely. And it's like, it doesn't really matter what you know before going into that in-home. Like 9 times out of 10, they always have more medical than what they told you over the phone. And if you don't ask that over the phone, you just have to be willing and ready to be prepared. And one thing that you can do as a professional in this business, get a Dropbox or some kind of a file thing on your laptop, computer, whatever it may be, where you have a resource to easily quickly flip to a certain type of medical and know exactly what direction it is. And then also keep a diary or a log, or just mentally try to remember over time what certain medical situations did get approved in what places, and different things like that. So that's huge.
Cool. No, I like that. Can you kind of go through how you tie it down?
So essentially, I don't tie it. Well, I let them tie it down. So after I verify the health information and I kind of have a direction of where we want to go, I pinpoint each of the clients and what products that we're doing and different things like that. But I don't quote anything without the clients with me. So the same mindset comes behind the 3 of us versus the carriers is when I start quoting, I will actually pull the quoting software up from the carrier that I know I'm going to, from the product that I know I'm going to, and I will work that out with the client. I will have a heart-to-heart after the verify the health information, and I'll tell the clients, okay, all right, Rachel, Vinny, guys, I'm going to speak real frank with you, and I don't know any other way. I got my insurance start with USAA and everything like that. So I've never really had anybody complain that I speak frank to them. And I'm going to do the same thing for you. I learned a long time ago that there's 2 types of insurance agents in this business, right? There's the guy that shows up to your house, fancy car, fancy suit, slick back hair, and he's the guy that nobody will talk to at Thanksgiving, right? And then there's the way I do it. And obviously you could tell by my hair, I can't slick it back. And they just kind of laugh and they're like, "What? Where are you going with this?" I'm like, listen, Rachel, the reason I do it the way that I do is because ultimately, if I find you something that works, that's so expensive that it disappears when times get tough in your life, and say 6 months or 12 months down the road, it's gone. Did I really do you any good?
No.
And they always say no. And I didn't do you any good. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on this together, and we're going to find something that's a staple of your budget, just like your cell phone bill or car insurance. So we know it's always going to be there, always protecting your family the way that you want it to. And we have that heart to heart. And I always tell people, if they're my mom's age or my dad's age or my brother's age or whatever, I'm going to treat them like that. Like, I'm going to talk to you. Like I was talking to this couple, they were both 69 and they had a son my age. And they told me his name was Trevor. And I was like, hey, Susan, I'm going to talk to you like Trevor would. So just imagine Trevor went out and got his life insurance license this last week, and he knew everything that there is to know about life insurance. I'm going to talk to you the same way that he would. And they love that because they know that they can truly open up. And if they're okay to have that budget conversation with you, and you start presenting numbers at a high rate and you downsell and you back it down to where it fits their budget, and they absolutely say, hey, stop right there. That's exactly where we were thinking, $120 a month. It's exactly going to fit my budget. I know at that point, this thing's never going anywhere. And it just creates a culture of trust. And once you have that trust, and once you've done that enough times, then you can get more comfortable with it. But I very rarely run into like a think about it, because even if somebody tells me at the end that they want to think about it, so you're talking about the tie down, even if somebody tells me at the end that they want to think about it, I'm like, that's great. The insurance company wants to think about you too. So you have all the time in the world to think about it while they're thinking about you, whether or not you're going to get approved for this coverage or not. So that's really every client that says they want to think about it or they have apprehension, it's just their knee-jerk reaction to automatically say no. And it's like one little push, and if you push back, they usually will work with you on it. And you even told them earlier, hey, John, Mary, I'm going to speak frankly with you. And right now you guys are not making a decision, which you haven't made for 69 years, right? It's my job to kind of push you a little bit, and you push back. And it's okay to do that. It's not okay to take no for an answer and then call that person back a week or 2 weeks later and lose a client in that time period, or have a medical condition come up during that time period, which prevents them from being able to get what you were talking about. So there's a reason why we do things the way that we do. It can come across as pushy, but when you're talking about life or death, it's definitely important.
Yeah. Do you tell them before you start that you're going to be filling out an application with them?
I kind of tell them as we're going through during the nods and that life and health portion. And then like sometimes I'll pinpoint one of them as the primary income earner. And I'll say at a certain point, well, we obviously know no matter what, before we go any further, we got to get, John protected today. Is that correct? And then they're like, yeah. So I kind of just throw those micro commitments out all the time. And if I'm not met with a yes, or I agree, or whatever it may be, I will address it then. There's no point in going forward and showing prices if you didn't get your micro commitments throughout the whole thing, because none of it really, you haven't done anything yet at that point. So we kind of just get micro commitments every step of the way. And if it doesn't make sense, then why keep going? Make it make sense, then keep going. And that's the key. The other thing, that I think is really cool is tying down multiple products. A lot of the time we will be working with people where they can only get, a final expense whole life, 5, 10, 15, 20, $25,000 in coverage. And, a simple accidental policy might add an additional $15, $20, $25, $30 a month, gives them a lot more coverage, and it's tied in with multiple lines of business. And you always have that backup, right? So say I wrote a $30 accidental and they call me 10 months from now and say, hey, we can't afford our $60 whole life. Okay, well, let's just cancel that. And at least you still have your accidental going as well. So there's a lot of different reasons why tying in multiple products, writing products on both of them, as well as reaching out to their referral market, because that will, I guess, cement your place in their life as their insurance broker. So that's really cool. Their children, products on their children. One thing that I always do is reach out to my warm market. So one of the cool things that I remember as a new agent, it's kind of embarrassing, but I didn't want to talk to anybody about life insurance because I was so green. I was afraid to have that conversation. I can tell you that if you want a quick ticket to failure in this business, think like I thought, which means you don't want to talk to even your own parents or your own siblings about a life insurance policy. Those are the people that you should be practicing this on. And you should be learning your sound and your in-home and all those things with those people. So you should be reaching out to as many people as you possibly can in the beginning of this, not to hound them with insurance, but don't be the guy that gets a call from your mom. Hey, Johnny, I need your social. I'm putting you on my life insurance policy. You know what I mean? Like, and you're like, Mom, I sell life insurance. Like, I could help you with that. Don't be that guy. Be the guy that reaches out to everybody that's close to you and help them find protection. And you'll learn your in-home process in that process, because ultimately you're going to talk the way that you truly sound, like your true self, with your warm market and with your friends and family.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yep.
Cool. So if you were to say, if you can give like one piece of advice to someone just getting started, what would it be? Or to someone that wants to get better, either one.
Okay. So one piece of advice: understand that it's a numbers game. And what I mean by that is, I still remember like the first client that I closed. And if I can go back and remember that in-home, it was atrocious. So my in-home that I have 5 years later is super polished and super good. And it allows me to close 95% of the people I sit with, right? But in the beginning, it didn't matter how good it was, because if I had 10 appointments and I closed 3, I made $3,000, you know what I mean? It's like, so understand that it's a numbers game and worry about perfecting the in-home and getting better at closing more throughout the process of that beginning 90 days. Because you could be absolutely horrible at this and still close 2 policies. I remember one time I had a new agent, just got his license, called me about a week into the business. And he's like, hey, yeah, I just wrote $2,500 in premium with a company called Mutual something. I'm like, Mutual of Omaha. And he was like, yeah, that's him. I'm like, what did you write him? He's like, I don't really know, but I was with them and it got approved. And I was like, do you remember what you said? He's like, no, we just talked about it. I'm like, that was the realization. It's like, it doesn't matter what you know. It matters how much you care, right? And that old saying is true. And I'm not going to say it in the way that people say it because it's too cliche, but just do the numbers. People don't realize they never back out the numbers of dials. Let's say we spent $1,000 on a week or let's say we made 1,000 dials a week to book our appointments. And we wrote an average of $5,000 issue paid premium a week, right? Well, if you divide that, you're making $5 a dial, regardless of what happens, right? Am I doing that math right in my head? If you make 1,000 dials, which is ridiculously a ton of dials in a week, but you wrote $5,000 in premium, you made $5 a dial regardless. So get the numbers in your favor, stack the deck in your odds as a new agent, and look at that first 90 to 180 days in the field. Your true commission outside the 30% that you're going to inherently close just based on the numbers, your true commission is your learning experience during that time. And then once you start closing 50, 60, 70, 80%, that's just added money that you're making on the back end. So that's my one little tip for new agents.
I love it. That's so true, because it's all the skill set. If you can get that skill set like really strong in the beginning, you can go so far. So that was good advice.
I'd like to think that like I'm like some kind of like gold, like magic bullet. Like I'm the reason why I'm so good. No, it's not. It's simply a numbers game. It's activity, and the results always follow the activity.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. I know everyone on here is hitting up the chat that they all loved it too. So I appreciate everything you shared, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks.